To the Mesa City Council study session for Thursday, November the 5th. I note that our council is present with the exception of Mr. Whitaker, who will be absent today. The first item on our agenda is to hear a presentation and discuss the state of the court update. I believe we have Judge Tatz with us in the council chambers. Is that right?
That's correct, Mayor.
Welcome, Your Honor. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me and letting me talk for a little bit about the state of the court. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for the appointment and the confidence you've shown in appointing me as presiding judge. I've told everybody at the court that going internal like this is really a reflection on everyone over there, that obviously things are going well. People are doing great jobs over there, so you wanted to keep it going by appointing someone to preside who's internal, and I really appreciate the confidence and have every intention of living up to that. I wanted to talk first about just a few of the people and recognize some of the losses we've had over the court over the last few months. Judge Richard Garcia was commissioner over the civil cases in the court for the last 10 years or so. He's a legend in Phoenix legal circles. He was a Phoenix judge for a long time. Unfortunately passed away in May. Judge Garcia loved his job. I got to share the first floor with him over at the courthouse, and every morning he'd walk in with a big, loud, booming, "Good morning, Mesa, Arizona." He loved coming to work. He loved being a judge, and he's really missed. And so I just wanted to make sure to recognize him. Some of you are, I'm sure, much more familiar with Paul Thomas, a longtime court administrator. Saw some incredibly innovative programs come to the court through Paul, and he retired at the end of August. We're currently in recruiting to replace him. That actually closes tomorrow. Huge shoes to fill, great guy, again, sorely missed. Whoops. Okay. Judge Craig Fuji, again, someone like Judge Garcia who really loved being a judge. His medical retirement went through a few weeks ago. Judge Fuji was the exemplary person to look at for judicial temperament. Very patient, very kind. Nobody walked out of his courtroom winner or loser without knowing they had a fair shake. And then finally, of course, my predecessor, Judge Matt Tafoya, who oversaw with Paul for 17 years, the building of the courthouse, all the special programs. Huge shoes to fill, great guy, great mentor to me. So again, they're all going to be very missed, and I just wanted to take a minute, so I appreciate you indulging me and recognizing all those people. I know there's been some talk about closing of the courts and what's been happening through COVID, so I just wanted to spend a couple minutes going through what we have been doing, just so everybody understands fully that the court was never actually completely closed down. Between March 17th and June 1st, we were very limited, but we never shut down for in custody proceedings. We have to see anybody who's arrested by the police within 24 hours of the arrest. We had a judge and staff in the jail court Monday through Sunday, every single day at 8:30 to make sure we kept up with that duty. We also were always open during our normal operating hours, as we have to be, for protective orders. We always had a judge and staff to do those. And if people were willing to come into the court during those times and they wanted to resolve their case by changing their plea to guilty under some agreement with the prosecutor, we gave them the opportunity to do that. So we never completely shut down, but obviously those months we were very limited operations. We tried to get back going again in June. We added in arraignments, which are the first appearance when someone's cited into court, so they can come in and have the opportunity to try and resolve their case or figure out their next step. The intermediate pretrial conferences, prior to trial, we started doing those again. And we started doing non-jury trials. So we got up as much as we could in June, but of course the numbers started to spike. We'll talk about some of the directives we had. So we had to shut back down around the time I took over in July. In July, we were kind of back to that limited area that we were in March through June. In August, when I took over in July, I started thinking about and talking with everyone, what can we do? We've got to do something. We can't just sit on our hands and let these cases add up. So we started doing telephonic arraignments. First appearances where people would call in, let us know if they wanted to resolve their case, and if they did, we'd resolve it for them over the phone, or if they wanted a trial, we'd set a trial off a ways. It was interesting times. We had its challenges, but we were able to resolve a lot of cases that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do by doing those telephonic. And those intermediate pretrial conferences, we started doing those outside of court. Normally at a pretrial conference, The judge meets their client at the courthouse. They talk about the case. They talk to the prosecutor at that time, resolve it or not. We said, why can't you do that outside of court? Talk to your client outside of court. Talk to the prosecutor outside of court. Let us know by email what you want to do with your case. And that was effective, and there are still some judges doing that right now. But again, we let people resolve their cases either over the phone or in person if they wanted to. Order to show cause hearings and probation revocation arraignments are more for people that had already resolved their cases but aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So we, instead of just resetting those, we said, hey, call us. We'll get you rescheduled for counseling. We'll get your jail rescheduled, whatever you need to do. Starting in September, we added back non-jury trials. We started bringing people back in for arraignments, and we restarted all of our specialty courts, our community court, our veterans court, our Rule 11 court, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes. In November, pre-trials went back to being in person, but again, I gave the judges the discretion. If they liked the way it was going with having it outside of court and just letting us know by email whether they wanted a trial or whether they wanted to resolve the case, they could still do that, and it's been very effective. One of those things that maybe through this not ideal circumstances, we were able to change some systems and make some things better. And in December, we have going to start up with jury trials again, which will be the last piece to the puzzle and everything going. There's several things we had to take into consideration. I want to make sure everybody understands that we had to balance a lot of different competing interests. Obviously, we had to look at constitutional rights of both victims and defendants for speedy trial, for the right to confront their accusers, the right to question their accusers. We had to take all that into consideration. We had administrative orders coming out of the Arizona Supreme Court telling us of things we could and could not do during some of those times, and we still are under those, and I'll talk about a couple of those challenges in a minute. Maricopa County Superior Court had some administrative orders. They've pretty much just left it to the individual courts, though, lately and said, you know your court the best, presiding judges in the limited jurisdiction courts like city courts. You guys decide what you need to do. City of Mesa policies and procedures, obviously right-to-work issues, people coming back, people working from home, we had to follow those. Obviously, resources and technology. What we could do is limited by our resources and by our technology. We have the best technology, I think, of any court in the state, but there's still limitations on what we can do telephonically, visually. Concerns of our staff, concerns of court participants. As you all know, people have a variety of opinions in terms of how much they should be around other people, where they should be going, what they should be doing, and we wanted to take that all into consideration. And then finally, of course, we recognize the effect on public safety. We understand that we're part of the system. We have to make sure that the public's safe. We have to hold people accountable when they are charged and or convicted of crimes. So we understand that we have to look at that as well. A couple of the challenges, like I said, from the Arizona Supreme Court order, they still require us to have a staffing plan in place that avoids having to close the court entirely if there's an infection or a quarantine. And their recommendation was have basically two different work units. Two groups work 2 days a week, the other two work the other 2 days a week. So if somebody does come down with it and everybody has to leave, you've got the other group. They've become a little more flexible on that in discussions we've had. We've brought our people back. We figure we've got more floors. We've done everything we can to separate them. We had a scare a couple weeks ago. Didn't require everybody to leave work and go test. We had a few people that had to leave work and go test, but we've worked it out to the point that we're confident that if somebody does come down with it, knock on wood, nobody at the court has yet, we've got a plan in place. We will not ever have to shut the court down. We don't want to go backwards. We want to go forward. But physical distancing obviously is an issue. If any of you have ever been to the court, you know we'll pack 30, 40 people on a docket and cram them into the courtroom. We can't do that anymore. We can get about 12 in our courtroom, but we have, again, through a great work with the management team and supervisors, we've come up with a system where if there is too many people in a courtroom at a time, we've got a system in place where they go to different places for overflow and come in when the room's there. The other challenges are obviously the backlog of cases, but we're getting through those. We're not resetting cases anymore simply because of the size of the dockets. We're handling everybody who comes in. The lack of notice to defendants I'm going to talk about with community court because that is a real key. There's some people who clearly had notice of court dates don't show up. I have no problem issuing a warrant in that case. Sad thing is we had a lot of people who were showing up for court. Because of COVID, we reset their cases several times. And they didn't have a good address, or they had no address, or they got evicted and lost their address. They had no idea that they were ready to come back to court. They don't know about their court date. We've got to make those decisions, and that's a tough one. And then like I said, Jury trials have been an issue, but we're ready. We've come up with a solution. We're going to be able to do those in December. So just to put a little visual on the numbers, and I won't spend too much time on these, but just to kind of show you the changes from 2019 to 2020 with COVID, this is just a list of the visitors we had inside the courthouse. And as you can see, May went from over almost 12,000 people down to 562 walking through the doors. So we had a huge reduction in the number of people we let into the court during those times. But the filings, while they did decrease, they didn't decrease nearly as much. And that's where the backlog comes from, is we did have, you know, a lot more filings than we had visitors, and that's what we're dealing with right now. But as you can see, we still are resolving cases. We never stopped, and the DUIs as of September, we're almost resolving as many as we did back in 2019. Other misdemeanors, by September, we were up to almost the same number that we did resolve in 2019. Civil traffic, same thing, we're back up and doing them. And protective orders actually did get to the point that they were exactly the same. So I just wanted everyone to have confidence. The court is open, the court is running, and we are doing everything we can to serve the citizens of Mesa. Customer service adapted, and they did a great job taking payments online, telephone, mail, Dropbox. We're still not, one of the ways we're reducing the number of people who come into court is people who just need to make payments, file motions, ask for their cases to get continued. We're not allowing walk-ins to come into the court. We're requiring them to email or call or use another method to resolve their cases or to do what they need to do in their cases when they're not actually scheduled for a court date. Our average calls per month because of that did increase during the COVID times, and we were able to handle that. We have civil traffic hearing officers who can handle civil traffic cases where people don't have to come into court. They can grant continuances, they can take pleas of responsible, they can order people to go to defensive driving class. So we've always been able to do that, and we're continuing to do that at this time. We found a very interesting phenomenon. A lot of the customer service call agents working from home actually were more productive from home. We saw a decrease in our abandoned call rate. The number of people who would be on the line, get put on hold, and then just drop the call, that went down significantly. The number of people processed per hour went up. So we actually saw people were more effective working from home, and we're still continuing somewhat to do that in our customer service area. So the challenges did lead to opportunities. As I talked about earlier, utilize that technology for uncontested hearings, both video and telephonic, as well as paper hearings. We haven't done video in regular court, but we have done video in community court. And I'm gonna talk about that in a minute, but it's been very effective for the people who are housed in the hotels and the shelter program that I know you all are very familiar with. We've continued to take advantage of being at the forefront, as I said, of court automation in the state. Again, we've got some customer service people who are able to work from home. Our clerks can actually watch the proceedings and do their work from home. They can hear it, they can see it, they're on the computer, they can do everything they could do at the courthouse short of the face-to-face contact with people, which allowed us to do the 2 and 2 when we were doing it at that time. And then, as you know, Mesa PD used the CARES Act money to obtain those hotel shelters for the homeless, and we have navigators at the court or at the hotels who will link the defendants who are staying at the hotels into court for community court. I'll see them when I'm up there. I've got my computer on one side, but I've got the laptop with the stream over to the hotel shelters in the other. The defendants will meet with us through their navigator. They'll have a private conference with the public defender first, and then I will go over their directive with them, their game plan. These are the things we need you to do between now and the next court date. And it's been very effective because we have that captured audience. We don't require them to come from East Mesa to come to court, but they're right there. The navigator can go knock on their room, bring them to the lobby, and say, hey, it's time for court. And that's been very effective and something we are continuing to do. We understand community court's role in all that we do give them an incentive to take advantage of the services. Our numbers swelled, obviously, considerably when the police started that program, started citing people into community court. I did a count in July of community court active participants was around 150 people. Prior to COVID, in July that had swelled to over 700, and I'm guessing it's much higher now. So we do have a lot of people. The biggest challenge has been getting them, obviously, to come into court. They're that audience that when we reset the cases without their knowledge, obviously, they aren't getting the notice. And it's a really tough situation for us because We don't want to issue warrants, but by the same token, we have to do things to make the cases move along. So I was talking yesterday after the end of our community court docket with John Bellotti, the city prosecutor, Meg Leal, the public defender, and one of her contract public defenders, Grace Myers. We all work in the court together, and we brainstormed for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and came up with, I think, a very good solution. I'm not going to talk about it yet because I want to talk to the police about it and make sure they're on board. But we think we found a way where we don't have to house people overnight, but we can get them back in court when the police have contact with them, give them an opportunity to come in voluntarily to deal with their case where they've actually been given the notice. And again, if they don't, we have no choice. We have to issue warrants, and we will in those situations. So again, state of the court, we're adapting, we're up and running. Jury trials start next week. Again, it just shows the great collaboration I have over at the court. I brought the judges into a courtroom last month and said, hey, how can we get jury trials going? What do you think? What can we do? And one of our judges, Ray Schumacher, said, hey, you know what? Why don't we put 6 along the back wall and put plexiglass dividers between each of them? People who are uncomfortable with COVID said, you know, I could do that. I would show up if that was me being summoned to a jury, and I'd be comfortable with that. So we've made the orders to adjust one of our courtrooms to do that. November 30th, we have jury trials scheduled, and my fingers are crossed that everything's going to be ready to go, and we'll start doing jury trials then. The specialty courts are all up and running, the ones that you're familiar with. Our great Veterans Court program. You know, I was the inaugural public defender back in 2014 or 2015 for that program, and I sat in a couple months ago. Rick Romley is the pro tem judge who oversees the Veterans Court, and it is amazing how far they have come. Not that we weren't doing great things back then, but it is so efficient now. They've got so many players really helping our veterans who unfortunately find themselves on the wrong side of these tickets to hook up with services, to look for housing, to get the benefits they deserve. And it's a great, great court, and I couldn't be more proud of that. The Rule 11 court is up and running again. Again, that's the court where someone, if there's a question about their competency to be prosecuted, it used to be we had to make them sit through a couple interviews, find doctors' offices somewhere in the valley where they'd have to go and meet with them, and then they'd have to go to Superior Court, and we'd have to send attorneys to Superior Court. Well, Paul Thomas and Matt Tafoya changed that. We can hear them now in our courthouse. What used to take 5 or 6 months to resolve is taking 30 to 45 days. That's up and running under Judge Lawler's. She's presiding over that and doing an incredible job. We also have our arraignment courts up and running again with Judge Areola. They are giving people the opportunity to resolve their cases at the first setting for people who want to. There's no pressure, but if they want to resolve it at the first setting, they can do that. I've got great judges. I've mentioned 3 of the 4. We also have Judge Valerie Boyer-Wells, who's been there for a long time. Great judges. We've got a great new commissioner, David Allen II, who I couldn't be more pleased with his performance and how he's doing with the civil traffic court and being run back up, and he's also handling our protective orders now. Outstanding deputy court administrators, outstanding management assistant, our supervisors, our lead, our staff. Everybody's been working together really hard to keep things going and handle the challenges. We're busy right now. We've got some huge dockets, and we've got to comply with those orders, but we're doing it, and we're doing it effectively. We continue to work closely with John Bellotti and his people and Meg Leal and her people. They've been so adaptable. They've been so cooperative with our changes every month. We change the operations, and they just adapt and they do it. They've had great input, but they're great to work with. And I know John, unfortunately, is not going to be with us much longer. He's going to retire, and he's going to be extremely missed. And then finally, we're working to strengthen our strong relationships with the city, with city management, with the police, with court security. I've met with Chief Cost. I've met with Jim Smith. I've met with Chris Brady. I've met with some of the police commanders, our court security. Everybody's just working hard to keep it going. And I couldn't be more pleased with the performance of everyone, and I'm really happy to have this position. So I want to thank you again for that. And if there's any questions, I'm here and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Judge Tatt. We're as pleased and happy that you're in your position as you are. You've been a great resource for the court for many years, and excited with the role that you're currently playing as well.
Thank you.
I know we do have some questions. Let's start with Councilmember Luna.
Judge Taz, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm really impressed all the things that you're doing to serve our community. I also appreciate that you use the innovation in terms of using video conferencing, perhaps Zoom, to reach some of those individuals that are difficult to access or for them to participate in the community court. Do you plan to continue doing that? Are you going to look at maybe setting up some satellite offices or areas where we get more access to some of our members may have challenges getting to the court? I think it's a great idea. I think what you've done is really impressive. I know that we all have had to pivot and we're using Zoom as a technology, a delivery system to reach our community and our constituents. But using it for the court is a really good idea. And I think I want to commend you on that and your staff for doing that. Do you anticipate that you're going to be doing more of this as you move towards the future?
Well, certainly we're going to continue with the hotels and in terms of the shelters. I know I watched the study session last week, and it sounds like that's going to go on through past 2021 or 2020, and we're certainly going to continue to do that. We're never going to stop. We haven't discussed, honestly, any sort of other satellite office. I think it's an interesting idea because it has been effective in community court in terms of having the people right there, being able to link them in without having to get to court or come to court. So I do think it's a great idea. It's certainly something I'll bring up with the management team and with the judges and see what we can do in terms of our resources. Obviously, one of the advantages we have with the hotel shelters is we have the navigators there who can work it out. Obviously, if we were to have a satellite office somewhere where maybe it was closer for people, we'd have to staff it. We'd have to have the people out there. But it's been very smooth in terms of the utilization of the technology. I can see and hear the people clearly. They can see and hear me clearly. Getting the paperwork to them, we just email it to the navigator. They've got a place where they can print it out and hand it to them. And I don't see, why we couldn't do that in some other locations. So that's certainly an interesting idea that we can look into. But no, we haven't considered that at this point.
Thank you. Council, other questions for Judge Tatz? Vice Mayor Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Judge Tatz, great presentation. I had a couple of questions, but prior to that, thank you for being thoughtful in protecting your staff and as well as the court visitors who come to the courthouse or the limited amount that now come and protecting them and in spite of what's going on. I can't remember what presentation was. I was looking back, but when you talked about reaching out to people who call in or ask for information to proceed with their cases or what they need to do, is there any links or other information that they go to readily and quickly that you provide your court staff for anybody calling in?
Well, through one of the things that the Supreme Court wanted us to do, because we're not allowing the public to come into court at this time, obviously family members, friends, we're strongly having to dissuade them from coming in. Obviously, we make exceptions when we need to. So one of the things we did do a couple months ago is we started a live stream. So audio, everybody can come to court or hear the court proceedings in every one of our courtrooms by simply going to our website. There's a link to virtual courtroom, and every single individual courtroom, they can log in and hear everything that's going on at that time. Otherwise, again, with a customer service, if someone wants to make a payment, they can do it online. They can do it through either speaking to someone or through the interactive voice response service. They can talk to a civil traffic hearing officer and resolve their civil traffic cases. We are responding to motions that are filed online. So if someone has a concern about coming to court with COVID, we can look at their email. We can try to contact them separately. I know I've done that several times with motions where I've looked at some other ways to try and resolve their cases. So while we may not have anything formal set up in terms of visual links for someone at that point, we are allowing people to do everything they possibly can in their cases through either phone or through email. If they're uncomfortable coming in, and that does include, as long as they're staying in touch and letting us know, resetting their cases until a time where they may be comfortable. We can't do that forever, obviously, but we have been very accommodating.
Very good, thank you. My last one was in one of your slides in the challenges and opportunities. One of the last bullet points you had was incredible success stories. Did you share one of those with us? Or can you think of one that you might share?
Sure.
Or did you already? Maybe I missed it, but I thought.
No, I didn't talk any specifically. In community court, we've had amazing success stories, and I think that's more what that was toward. And I always go back to one that I've talked about before, but we had a young lady who I was very familiar with. As most of you know, I was a public defender in Mesa for 7 years before I was appointed to the bench in 2016, and it was someone who I had represented, and probably, frankly, every contract public defender had represented. We did the math, and she had spent over 2 years in jail, which I don't have those slides before me, but the cost, if you look at it, right now we pay about $2,000 a month to Core Civic to house somebody. That was back where probably half of that time was in the county, where it was a lot more. We're probably literally talking about $60,000, $70,000 in jail costs, not to mention public defender costs. And then just the indirect costs. I mean, all the police contacts, all the fire contacts. You know, she had, I want to say it was between 70 and 80 cases in our court during those years. And a couple years, not even a couple, about a year ago, she was able to find an apartment in Phoenix through our community court system. She was housed. She had wraparound services. She had addressed she had alcohol issues that she'd addressed. She had mental health issues that she'd addressed. And, you know, I remember her coming before me, and she was scared. She was actually afraid to go into an apartment because she hadn't had a roof over her head for so many years, and she just didn't know that lifestyle. And I am 100% certain without community court, it would have just been the same old cycle. She would have kept getting arrested, spending more time in jail. You know, the merchants, back in those days, the prosecutor's office a lot of times had put people on probation and restricted them from certain areas of the city. And I think she was restricted pretty much from every area of the city because, you know, she'd caused some sort of issue in one area or the other. But she came before us. She graduated. She was sober. We dismissed a bunch of cases. We suspended a bunch of fines. And we haven't heard a peep from her. And everything I've heard, at least we haven't heard a peep from her in a negative way. In a positive way, I've heard that the apartment's there and everything's going great. And the savings to the city's huge financially. The savings, lack of recidivism is huge. But just to know that a human being like that, their life was turned around because of their involvement in the criminal justice system, it's such a win-win for everybody. I mean, it's better for the city, it's better for the person. And that's the type of, that's an extreme case, but there's many cases similar to that we literally see every day. I wish it was everyone. Obviously, it's not. You know, the person has to be willing to make the changes. The person has to want to make the changes, but we offer them the services, and if they take advantage of them, that's, I strongly believe, possible for everyone.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like, and we know community court is a great asset to our community, and we appreciate the due diligence that everybody does in protecting those that need it, especially the nonprofits, the wraparound services, especially the navigators who are your boots on the ground that, you know, basically navigate that whole person through the system, right?
Right.
So with that, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Judge Tass.
And thank you, Vice Mayor. If I can just take a second, I should definitely also acknowledge the incredible job that our nonprofits do in working with us, our navigators through Community Bridges and Copa Health and Sacred Ground. They really care. They really do such hard work, and I thank all of you for approving 2.5 more navigators. I know that CBI, Community Bridges, is in the process of recruiting and trying to hire those, and we can't wait to have those people on board so we can get them out there, trying to locate more of these people who don't have notice, get them back into court so we can get them hooked up with the services. So, Vice Mayor, thank you for mentioning them because, yeah, they are such an important, if not the most important part of our program.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Duff, did I see your hand up a moment ago?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you for that wonderful sharing that story. It's very powerful, and I would love for us to find a way to have more navigators. But my question is about the backlog. Maybe I missed it, but how much of a backlog is there in the courts now, or what are you looking at going forward and trying to resolve from the restrictions we had during COVID?
Sure, I couldn't give you exact numbers. I can give you like anecdotally from our docket size. Pre-trial conferences pre-COVID generally ran around 25 to 30 cases. They're running about 75. Community court, When we had 40 people with about 80 cases on our docket, we considered it pretty heavy. Yesterday, I presided over community court. We had 78 people with about 180 cases. Unfortunately, we only had 11 of those 78 show up. Again, that's just getting the notice out and getting people to come back. It's going to be a few months of that. It's going to be a few months where we're going to have really heavy dockets. Our appearance rate is low, so we're able to manage that. Unfortunately, because of the low appearance rate, we're able to manage the larger dockets because we don't have everybody coming in. But we've gone from resetting cases to, unfortunately, having to issue warrants. And I can tell you, I put myself in custody court once or twice a week in October, and I'm still there once a week this month, just to kind of keep a handle on things. And the police in October started being much more proactive in arresting people on warrants and arresting people on new charges. So we're seeing a ton of people in custody. We're generally releasing them, giving them a chance to come back because a lot of them didn't have notice because the court cases were reset so many times, or they're resolving their cases for time served or something. We're getting through it that way, but we recognize it's going to be a few months before we get really caught up to where we were pre-COVID.
Understandably, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do have a few questions as well. First, I just want to join you in expressing our appreciation for for Judge Garcia, Judge Fuji, and certainly Matt Tafoya for their great service, and the Court Administrator Paul Thomas. I think we're very proud of the Mesa Municipal Court, and those individuals were a big part of getting it where it is today. So thank you for taking some time to acknowledge that, and we join you in expressing our appreciation to them. Also, I want to say thank you for the innovative approach you've taken to keeping the court going. This is an essential government service, and operating it during the time of a pandemic is very challenging. So thanks to you and your staff and the other magistrates for figuring out ways to keep moving the ball forward in spite of the challenges that you've gotten. The other agenda item on our meeting today is talking about our cultural arts programs and how do we keep things alive and moving forward during this in the context of a public health crisis. I'm a little bit pessimistic, that things aren't going to get worse before they get better in terms of the virus. So I'm grateful that you aspire to get jury trials going again and work on the backlog. But what happens if things get worse before they get better? Will you just take a step back and do what you have been doing, or have you given some thought to contingencies if things get worse going forward?
I have, and I actually sent an email to all the judges and all the staff a couple days ago because I know there's concerns. The numbers are going up, and I know there's staff who are worried that why are we opening back up more when the numbers are going up? Is this really the time to do it? And yes, we'll have to go back to more limited operations. We're watching the numbers very closely. We're looking to the Supreme Court and to the city for guidance. If obviously either the city or the Supreme Court say, look, we don't want you to do this right now. Don't want you to do that. Then certainly we'll have to take a step back, and we'll do that on our own too, even without the guidance one way or the other. If we get to a point where we feel like we can't safely continue to do one thing or another in our court, we have no problem stepping back. We've seen that we can do some things telephonically, that we can do some things visually, and absolutely. What I put in my email is that the safety of the staff and the participants is by far our number one priority. And if we have to take a step back, we want to get through the backlog, we want to do the jury trials, but if we can't do things safely, then yes, we will absolutely take a step back.
I appreciate that. And one of my takeaways from hearing folks like yourself come in from all the different departments in the city is that there are best practices, that we can adapt, and in spite of the challenges that we have, there is a safe way to do this, even in the context that we're in. So again, just kudos to you and your staff for discovering what those are. Judge, I know you mentioned that you watched the study session last week where Natalie Lewis and Aaron Raines and others, talked about our strategic homeless plan. And And obviously, the community court is, in my mind, one of the best things that we have as part of that plan. You've touched upon this to some extent, but what's your reaction to that plan, and how do you see the community? What role do you see the community court playing in that?
Well, we basically, my role, the way I see our role is we provide the incentive for the people who maybe aren't full bore about wanting to accept the services and take advantage of the services and take advantage of the opportunities. We give them the incentive by saying, look, these are criminal charges. Being homeless is absolutely not a crime, but if you commit a crime because of homelessness, then that is something that has to be dealt with. And we can either, do it the old-fashioned way through the criminal court system with jail time and fines. And as I tell people in my introduction, it's fines we know they can't pay. It's jail time where they have to start all over again. These are things that are not effective. We've seen that in changing the pattern. So we'll give you the opportunity. We'll dismiss your old fines. We'll dismiss your cases, but you've got to take advantage of the services that the nonprofits are offering to you. You've got to change your situation so you're not finding yourself having to get charged with these type of things. And that's where we kind of play the role. Obviously, if someone's willing to walk into Community Bridges and take advantage of the services and do everything they need to do, Community Court doesn't need to be a part of that. We're here for those people who maybe aren't taking advantages of the services, aren't doing what they need to do to change their situation. We can give them some incentive to do that.
Well, I've appreciated the time or two I've had the blessing of observing what you're doing in community court. And again, to me, I think it's the best tool we have, because we work with people on an individual basis. We deal with them by name. We have a plan for people, and that's how people proceed and get out of their situation. So just really grateful for the good work you do there. And again, I think as we go forward, I'm excited for this homeless strategic plan to be implemented, and for us to maybe even amplify, the role that the community court plays in that. Mr. Freeman, did you have another comment?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. Judge, I appreciate you sharing the successes. And, I think the statistics that you provided for us as council is important, that you get back to the baseline, or, that you were prior, in 2019, so that you can obviously get your caseloads managed more effectively. But and then, are those in the open data at all, in the portals at all for the city that people can look at, or maybe for community court per se? But what are your thoughts on that, about this data that you showed us being available to the public, or is it necessary?
No, I'm perfectly fine with that. Obviously, the data that I shared today was overall court. Community court, I know I got an email from Aaron Rain yesterday wanting to meet and talk about some sort of data collection so we can get some actual numbers to the success out of community court and some of the things we have done. I know he had some really good numbers that he provided to me for some presentations that I've done over the last year, and we want to contribute and help with that. So we are going to be meeting to try and get those numbers available, and I think that's an excellent suggestion as far as making those numbers available on the website. It's not proprietary by any means. It's certainly more than happy to share it with the public. The data I provided today was from a couple of my deputy court administrators who had shared that information with me, and I know they'd be more than happy to update that and put it on the website. So it's something we will definitely do.
And I think for myself as a council member, I look at that data to see how well everything's going, smoothly in your court. So I appreciate that information. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Freeman. I know that was one of the questions we had for Natalie and Aaron last week, is who is monitoring the data, and who's going to show us the matrix of are people, in one of the buckets along the strategic plan and not making progress, or backsliding, or to what extent are people, making progress? So that is a metric that I think we're anxious to see measured, so that we can hear from you whether or not we're being as effective as we want to be. Council, any other questions or comments for Judge Tatz? Well, again, Your Honor, thank you. We know how busy you are. Thank you for doing such a great job, and please pass along our thanks to your staff for the great job that everyone over at the Mesa Municipal Court is doing.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I will do.
Thank you. Council, the next item on our agenda for this meeting, item 2B, is to hear a presentation and discuss an update on Mesa Art Center programs and the proposed reopening of certain MAC programs and provide direction on the proposed program reopenings. I'm guessing Cindy is in the council chambers?
I am, Mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. It's so nice to be here with you today, and we're really excited to share information about Mesa Art Center's activities during the closure and our reopening plan. I'm here with Ilya Risky, Deputy Director for the department. So to start out, we want to say that of course, you've just heard a tale of public service and flexibility and adaptation, and we'll continue that theme. In responding to the pandemic, we knew we needed to be ready to address the challenges we faced, but we recognized it also created opportunities for engagement, and that was something we wanted to take advantage of to help meet the needs of the public during a very challenging time. Our staff was amazing. Everyone really embraced the idea that we had to adapt quickly and have a lot of change. We were committed to not only providing things virtually, but going beyond the screen to provide additional unique opportunities to the public. We wanted to preserve the core programs and, where necessary, translate them into the virtual. But we also wanted to innovate, not only to respond to the needs, but to figure out how to make a silver lining out of it. What could we learn? What could we do to serve the public better in this time? And we took a very collaborative team approach. Not only Mesa Art Center working with our sister organizations in the city and sharing staff and working together collaboratively on programming, but also working with community partners in many, many instances, and to good effect, I think. Ilya.
Thank you, Cindy. One of the ways we've done this is by converting our theater spaces into temporary film studios to record virtual art classes and content for our communities. Our theater production team and theater management teams have really been spearheading that effort and have become our video production teams. We've self-produced more than 38 online studio classes and 8 arts and service classes online over the past few months. We've also self-produced several virtual offerings for both AZM&H and Idea Museum and helped them develop their own programming. Additionally, our team's been working pretty closely with the city's facilities maintenance team to make improvements to our buildings to improve safety for both our staff members as well as the public when they return to our facilities.
Thank you, Ilya. We've also been, as you know, we've been doing a ton of virtual programming, and that has had some really wonderful online engagement success. I'm not going to read all these numbers to you, but to mention a few of them that are quite impressive. During the first 7 months of the closure, we had over 2.1 million social media impressions. That's people viewing or reading something through our social media platforms. We also launched our Connect with Mac portal on the website and had 44,439 page views in that 7 months. A couple of the figures that I really am proud of, 12,600 video views on YouTube. We had a ton of video programming provided. And you can see our Facebook number of 1.6 million. It's worth noting that the chart on the left shows in the orange what the nonprofit standard for the engagement rate is. And engagement rate is not the impressions, it's a percentage of those impressions where someone did something active like clicking or sharing a post or liking a post, leaving a comment. So a higher level of engagement with their participation. And I just really like pointing out that the blue is Mesa Art Center and the orange is the industry nonprofit standard, and we are producing engagement at well over the industry standard, really in all of the categories in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And now we'd like to share some information about the activities we've been participating in and bringing to the public over those months that we were closed. First of all, we really look at a number of different ways we want to impact the public. One of them is we want to promote not only their physical and emotional well-being, but provide opportunities for creativity and bring joy into people's lives in a time of stress and worry. We did that in many ways. I won't read everything, but we're very proud of the success of our online art studios classes, very well received, and participation from people much further away than normal, as well as people who just couldn't normally get out to do in-person classes. So that was an exciting benefit of the new reality. And I also want to mention tremendous success of our Art to Go activity box, which brings experiences, 2 different experiences with all the materials and instructions needed for a family to do a wonderful art activity and have something at the end of it, and that's been extremely popular. We have been doing a lot of other things, but among them have been some really fun interactive performing arts offerings that have been offered virtually and well received. And you've heard before about a wonderful, wonderful series of art competitions that MCA Museum has been leading.
We're continuing to devote resources and time to serve Mesa's vulnerable populations. Our creative aging studio classes that support older adults has been moved online. We're connecting with older adults as well through our expansion of our snail mail art program, where patrons can sign up to receive a piece of art in the mail. And we've also moved our Arts in Service studio classes online. Arts in Service, of course, providing studio art classes to our veterans and service members, and we're happy to be able to continue to serve this community. As we watched K-12 classes move online in March, along with the rest of the world, our arts and museum education teams began to research the needs of our K-12 educators to see how we could help. Based on that research, we've developed an educator portal called Learning Reimagined. Learning Reimagined will soon be a part of MAC's website, where we're able to collect all of our virtual resources online, available to support teachers from all across the Department of Arts and Culture. The content and resources will be broken down into different grade levels and categorized for our teachers to have easier access to. Some of the highlights from MAC's offerings specifically include Project Lit's virtual writing and spoken word experiences, as well as our guest artistic director, Zul Bailey's live music and recorded music, as well as educational opportunities.
We're also working very hard to help support the building of community during a time when people feel isolated. We think it's incredibly important to remind people that they're part of a larger social fabric and a community that cares about them. We've done this in many different ways. I'll just highlight a couple of things on this page. We're extremely proud of the virtual Dia de los Muertos festival that was officially launched on October 24th. And I say that because people have still been enjoying it, because being virtual, it was available to them not only on Channel 11 and Facebook Live, but it's now available on YouTube. It's also been rebroadcast since then on Channel 11. I have to recognize Channel 11 for their fantastic partnership in the production, and also our community committee for Dia de los Muertos and our wonderful partners and sponsors, including the Consulate of Mexico in Phoenix. Just to give you an idea, through only the first weekend, we had about 25,000 people who enjoyed the program. And since then, with the rebroadcasts and the additional visits that it's had, we feel confident we're going to end conservatively with over 30,000 individuals having experienced the program. We're very proud of that. And there's other programs you can see here that have continued, or some new ones like the exhibition in the theater windows distance but not separated, which is a very beautiful exhibition and will be available till January, and you can see it from outside the building. Many of you have experienced Strange Encounters, which continues through this Sunday. So if you haven't seen it, we encourage you to get out and see the Halloween scavenger hunt through downtown Mesa with the amazing work of renowned sculptor and designer Ray Villafane. And these are not just your typical jack-o'-lanterns. These are incredibly wonderful scenes that tell stories with whimsical characters, and also some fantastic pumpkin carvings and little felt mice. It's really a magnificent installation. We have had tremendous attendance. A conservative estimate, quite conservative for the 3 weeks, is that we'll have had at least 15,000 people visit, and probably significantly more. A big thanks to Councilmember Duff, who was a tremendous partner and helped us obtain some of the sponsorships that were essential to make this program happen. Big thank you to the sponsors themselves, and especially Downtown Mesa Association, which was a partner and principal sponsor for the event. I wanted to also highlight something brand new. MABEL, which stands for Mobile Art-Based Engagement Lab, is a new mobile pop-up studio and art activity hub in a retrofitted, customized trailer. You can't see the inside, but it has modular storage and workspaces. It has modular tables that come out that were custom made to set up around it. And while this did debut in mid-October, while we can't do what it was designed for, which is hands-on activities and more up close and personal pop-up activities, we are able to use it now with pre-made art kits that we're handing out free to the public at certain events. We started with an appearance at the farmers market. We've done one in downtown, and we're just happy to be able to bring joy and a sense of community through MABEL, and we're looking forward to when we can deploy it more fully as COVID eventually subsides. And now I'm going to ask Ilya to talk to you about our reopening plans for Mesa Arts Center.
Thanks, Cindy. To lead off, I'm going to discuss the next 3 slides, which are going to go into our reopening plans for 3 different programs. Both Cindy and I have visited each of the sites and feel that the capacities that we've proposed here and the cleaning and safety protocols will enhance the safety and comfort of our guests. And of course, we'll continue to rely on the city's guidance, county and state's guidance on whether or not we're to scale back or close down facilities based on the spread of COVID. We're proposing to reopen the Mesa Contemporary Arts Center on December 18th. Safety protocols for COVID will be in place, of course, with masks, increased cleaning, et cetera. We're going to institute online time ticketing, reduce our capacity to 25 people at any given time across the 5 galleries within Mesa Contemporary Arts Museum. We've established a one-way directional flow through the museum, installed plexiglass shields at the front desk, and have the hours of Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4, and Sunday, noon to 4.
Excuse me, Ilya.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Luna has a question for you.
Hi, Ilya. Thank you so
Hi.
much for opening the exhibits. I think that's exciting. I was at the Met a couple of weeks ago, and before entering the Met, they did temperature checks. Are you planning to do that? Is that something that you've considered? The mayor just mentioned that in terms of numbers of the pandemic, I mean, this is something that we continue to be cautious and want to make sure we continue to protect our public. Is this something you might consider doing?
Yeah, we had discussed it as we had developed our plans for reopening, and we can revisit it, of course, if that's what the council would like us to.
Well, before I got into the museum, they just did a temperature check, and then they let me into the museum, making sure that I wasn't running a fever. I think that might be a good idea. Of course, it's a massive structure. And we appreciate, we're very fortunate we have the Mesa Art Center and what it does. But it's not as big of a space as the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I don't know, I think that this is something you might want to consider as you move forward. It's a real easy thing to do, just do a temperature check, make sure everyone, our patrons are fine, and then they just proceed forward.
Mayor and Council Member Luna and council members, we did consider it, and we certainly can look at that again. A couple of the considerations were that, first of all, you have people, even now, still in November, you have people who may be coming in from warm weather whose temperature gets temporarily affected, and that has been one concern. Another is that people's normal temperatures vary widely. We had a staff member who pointed out that her temperature is well above the normal on an average day. And those considerations made us a little anxious about being in a position to use that to deny someone access. But we are happy to consider that and to discuss it further with city management and council if it is the desire of council.
I'd like to echo what Mr. Luna said. I think, yes, they're probably, certainly we defer to the health professionals. And if they say that this is not necessary, then I support that. But on the other hand, I think for the patrons, that are coming to the facilities, I think this is all about just creating a feeling of safety and a feeling of comfort. And I think that would contribute, to feeling like there's protocols in place that are protecting me and my children when we're using the facilities. So I think I would encourage you to look at that.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly will. We did get the thermometers, and we have a plan in place for how to implement it. So it will be a relatively easy thing to implement at all the museums, actually, and we will certainly look at that. Thank you. And now,
I'm sorry, Ilya, I think we interrupted you while you're still presenting.
Quite all right. Thank you so much. So we're planning on a limited reopening of our art studio classes as well on December 1st for a series of workshops, and then a larger reopening on January 11th with 144 classes and open studio sections to be spread throughout the course of the winter and spring. We've implemented similar safety protocols as well, including a reduced capacity for all classes with a maximum of between 4 and 10 students per class to ensure that everyone can distance safely from one another. Like I said, all the same safety COVID protocols are in place, mask requirements. One of the unique issues for studio classes is that safety equipment will no longer be shared. So all students will be required to have their own safety equipment. For example, welding students will be required to bring their own face shields. We'll continue to do online classes as well because we understand that some of our students won't feel comfortable coming back to our facilities just yet. And we want to make sure that we're continuing to serve that population. MAC theaters continue to be closed until further notice, but what we would like to do is, in place of that, is to hold a limited season of performances at Mesa Amphitheater as long as the COVID transmission rates are low. The photo you see here is an aerial view of the seating area of Mesa Amphitheater, and the magnified section there shows one of the seating pods. What we'd like to do is to sell tickets in pods of up to 6 seats and space those at least 6 feet apart throughout the amphitheater. Performances at Mesa Amphitheater, our proposal is to run from January 19th through May 18th, be approximately 15 events, starting at 750, capacity of 750, which is about 15% of Mesa Amp's 5,000 person capacity. and then gradually increase that to 1,500, which would be 30% of Mesa Arts Center, Mesa Amphitheater's full capacity.
And with that, we are happy to take any questions. We recognize there are some ambitious plans here, but I do want to report that the openings of the other two museums went extremely well with the same capacity as we're recommending for MCA, with lots and lots of room, far more than 6 feet. In fact, most people had their own gallery, and people reported feeling very comfortable and safe. And we do hold that as a very high standard. And I want to, before I turn it over for questions, I must thank the Mesa Arts Center staff and the foundation board. And really, the staff has been amazing. Everyone has pitched in, been creative, been willing to do whatever was needed to help make all of this happen, both delivery of programs while planning for reopening and adjusting facilities. So people have been extremely diligent, and we are so grateful for our colleagues at Mesa Arts Center and in the department.
Thank you, Cindy and Ilya. We appreciate your much like Judge Tatz right before you. We appreciate your efforts at in this kind of inconsistent mission we have of providing making paramount, public safety, but at the same time trying to find these best practices that will allow us to take advantage of what we've learned about living with the virus and ways we can provide. Open up some of these services. I know we do have several questions from council members. Let's begin with Councilmember Luna and then Councilmember Duff.
Thank you, Mayor. It's really more of a comment. First of all, Cindy, I need you to make sure you convey to your staff. We did Dia de los Muertos over there virtually, and they worked really, really hard to make it happen. So please convey my gratitude to your staff for doing that. The fact that we've had 30,000 people watch it is quite impressive, considering that it's something that you want to be there live to see the ofrendas and all the activities that took place during Dia de los Muertos. So please convey a special thanks to your staff. And also for Channel 11, we don't really recognize Channel 11 that much, but we're very fortunate that we do have Channel 11, Glenn and Lily and their staff, because they work really hard during this pandemic. And this is one of the activities that they were quite active on. So thank you, Channel 11. Thank you for your hard work during the Dia de los Muertos celebration and making it available, and the quality of production. You always do a fantastic job. Also, my wife had an opportunity to take one of the online art classes. She really enjoyed it. She thought it was great. And she was sad when it ended. So I'm sure she's going to be taking advantage of some future online virtual classes. So please continue doing that. And I know that there's an interest out there. And I just had a comment on MABEL. When I worked at Mesa Public Schools, we had a mechanism to get art to the school called Imagitorium. And I really appreciate now that you're doing the same thing with MABEL, getting out to the community, delivering art. What a great idea, Cindy. Continue doing that. I know you can't really have, you've got to maintain that social distancing, but art is very important during this pandemic, especially. We need a mechanism. Art can be very cathartic, and this is a way for our community to express themselves, hopefully in a positive way. So I appreciate having MABEL around, and you continue doing a great job for our community. So I just want to make sure you commend your staff and commend you and Ilya for the hard work you've done during this difficult time.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Duff.
I just wanted to add, too, that people can still, if they didn't get a chance to see Dia de los Muertos, all the videos are available on YouTube, and they can still go enjoy them. They are really magnificent. And there's also a page on the website with all kinds of activities that go along with it, recipes and hands-on art projects. So we encourage people to continue to enjoy that program.
I think I'm up.
Yes, Councilmember Duff, thank you.
I just want to reiterate many of the comments from Councilmember Luna on the remarkable job that you've done. And if I'm correct, you haven't done really prior to COVID, we didn't have that much online engagement or maybe any at all. I'm not sure about that, but
correct.
the tremendous numbers that I see surely show the creativity and innovation of the staff to move quickly and at that level of engagement.
Yeah, that's correct, Councilmember Duff and Mayor Giles and council members. We did not have any, with some online demos that we did occasionally, so we had a little bit of virtual programming that was primarily created as a way to engage people versus social media, but as a robust, full array of programs like this, we had nothing like that before. Thank you very much.
I hope that in some ways we can look at post-COVID. I'm looking forward to those days that we can continue with some kind of online engagement, especially to reach those who are outside even the reach of the Mesa Arts Center, which for a variety of reasons, whether geographically or ability to enjoy the arts. So I hope that we can do some programming post-COVID. I'm especially impressed with the MABEL and look forward to what we can do in the outreach to our community. I didn't know if the intentions are going to be more at events, schools. Can we do something in the neighborhoods to reach communities that necessarily don't have that opportunity to interact with the arts? Do you have any ideas about where you see that going?
Yes, Councilmember Duff and Mayor and Council, we are very excited about MABEL, and she is viewed as being deployed very broadly. We have some grant and sponsorship funding, and the purpose of that will be to go into neighborhoods and parks, to go into places that maybe don't typically have as much access to the arts. But she will also be available for rental by businesses who want to do a team building event with her. She will appear at both arts and culture sponsored events and also at City of Mesa sponsored events, things like Celebrate Mesa. When we can have it again in the future, she'll make appearances. So it will be a very wide array of things, but the first and biggest priority is in fact bringing her into the parks and into the neighborhoods to really bring the joy of the arts to folks all over our community. Thank you.
That's fabulous. I really like that. And arts is such a great way for our human connection and expression. It really creates an engaged community. And I appreciate coming up with that idea and seeing it in so prolific in different ways that we can engage with the community. My last question is about use of the Mesa Amphitheater, which I'm thrilled about. I really love the Mesa Amp, and I'm glad to see some performances and programming continue there. Now, is it Mesa Amp programming, or Mesa Arts Center has their own programming more around some music and plays and things like that? And the Mesa Amp traditionally has more music programming. Is it?
So,
How is that?
the programming will be programming presented by Mesa Arts Center. So in essence, it will be the performing live programs translated to the Mesa Amphitheater. So Randy Vogel is curating the series of programs that we're planning for that space. But we are collaborating with Mesa Amphitheater. They've been wonderful partners, and we will be working together in terms of bringing these offerings to the community. So it's very much a collaborative endeavor. And the other thing that I wanted to mention in regard to an earlier question you had was that we do intend to try to sustain a certain amount of online programming in the future. It is one of the silver linings of a number of them, things we've learned from going through this period, which is that we are expanding audience. We are reaching new people we didn't reach before, and we are especially excited about people who've told us that they're not able to either travel the distance or to leave their residence normally. They're shut in for various reasons, including physical challenges, and they are so appreciative to be able to get these online classes and other programs. So we still have to figure out how we do that once we're in full swing with all our regular programs, but we're committed to continuing a certain amount of that.
And so I assume at the Mesa Amp, in order to have a limited capacity, that you'll just sell the tickets online as though it's the regular theater. I don't know how you, I'm getting into the weeds about how you select seats or if you do or whatever. But anyway, so glad to see some arts that we can physically be at, and commend you again for your online outreach and success. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Cindy, I know this is under your purview and perhaps just a little different tangent, but our libraries. And Mayor, I'd like to perhaps get a discussion on our libraries reopening, everything that we might be. And I know you have a plan getting ready to implement, but I know I've gotten emails and phone calls. Why can we not reopen our libraries for public access? So with that said, I'll just defer to the mayor on that, and maybe a future discussion, maybe Heather can come in and tell us about it. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Freeman. I think Mr. Brady will maybe chime in here. And there has been some scaling up of the library activities that have been successful, and some limited people coming inside. And there are some protocols and some abbreviated access to books. But I think you make a great point. So, Mr. Brady, why don't we invite Heather to come in at a week or two from now, just so that we can make sure the public knows how we're bringing the library system back.
We can do that.
Thank you. Council, other questions for Cindy and Ilya? Mr. Heredia.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for Cindy and the staff there. You know, as we've seen all throughout the departments, in the city of Mesa, adapt and evolve their work during this pandemic. It's been great to see the innovation and the work that they put in to engage folks and actually reach sometimes folks that haven't been participating in our process or been engaged as much. So I appreciate that. And I would just maybe a comment per se, per what the mayor mentioned in our previous conversation on the courts and ensuring that we have, protocols and procedures as we see an uptick on COVID cases, and especially in our public facing departments and activities that we do, ensuring that everybody wears masks. There's enough signage that, says that out there, the temperature checks, if it's a good idea or if it's not, having some sort of, those protocols in place for us to be ready to ensure that we provide the semblance and the reality of what's still happening, and make sure that people feel safe when they're coming to the Mesa Arts Center or our museums or our libraries. And just want to make sure that we're still sticking to those items to ensure that people feel safe. So again, thank you for all the work that's been done. I do feel that some of the virtual activities and the arts bags, I know my kids love those, that both at the Mesa Arts Center and things like the Parks and Rec did over the summer, those activities. How do we continue those opportunities for folks to engage in some of these public facing activities that the city does? So I would leave it there, and want to make sure that we have contingency plans. Hopefully we can reemerge and be stronger and these things, but sometimes the realities is that we gotta be cautious sometimes, and based on what's happening right now just being prepared on plan A, plan B, plan C, and looking into what we can do moving forward.
Thank you very much. Yes, we do have contingency plans and are watching and having those conversations regularly with city management. We want to be careful that we're responsive to the environment we're operating in and make sure that we're doing the right things. We are somewhat hopeful that with the amphitheater program not planned for another 2.5 months, that if all goes well, that maybe we're through the surge and it's come back down by then, which would be a big help as well. So we'll be monitoring it and be absolutely vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just echo some of the things that I think many of my colleagues have said already, but I just want to, Cindy and Ilya, express my appreciation as a father and grandfather of people who are consumers of the museums. I appreciate the responsible way that the process we've gone through to open up the Natural History Museum and the IDEM Museum. I had the opportunity to walk through both of those recently and see how the protocols that are in place. And again, I think it's, I felt very safe. I thought it was a very responsible thing to open those museums. Very excited that we're opening up the Contemporary Arts Museum. I think it's for adults that are, again, we need some mental health breaks as well, not just the kids. So the fact that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that museum just for the second time was awarded the best of Phoenix New Times as the best museum in the Valley. So I'm excited that to have the experience of walking through that museum again shortly when it's opened. And Cindy, I think you used the phrase of, the silver lining. And I think we will in future years look back on this experience and say, yeah, these were some really good ideas that we were kind of forced to come up with during COVID, where we had to find innovative ways of interacting with the community. The additional use of Channel 11 and in conjunction with the Mesa Art Center, I think is brilliant. And I would, I think it's great that we have online classes and online access for arts enthusiasts, who take the initiative and go out and are looking for that. But I think it would also be great if Channel 11 became kind of a PBS type alternative where we're force feeding some culture and arts, to the community as well. I think of like Live at Lincoln Center, or all the arts that you see on PBS, and sometimes I stumble onto it, and I'm glad that I do. So also I can't let you be here without just paying compliments for Strange Encounters. That what a huge arts interaction occurred on the streets of our city, and again it was very consistent with the protocols of public safety, but at the same time, it was fun to see how in the confines of the situation we're in, we're still able to do things that the community really appreciates. And so kudos to everyone involved in that. And I promise I didn't set this up, but during this meeting, I got a text message from my daughter, who is working with I think it's my first grade granddaughter Kate on her ofrenda for Dia de los Muertos, and they were asking about photographs and mementos of my departed mother. So again, I think it's just great that we're even in the context of all the restrictions that we have, we're able to engage with the community and have these types of arts experiences. So thank you for being so innovative and creative to help us. Again, physical health is important, but mental health and social health, is important as well. So that's what your programs do, and they're greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for those kind words. And of course, to all the council and yourself for your encouragement and support. We couldn't appreciate it more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Council, the next item on our agenda for this meeting, item 2A, is to acknowledge receipts of minutes of the Human Relations Advisory Board. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Luna, seconded by Mr. Freeman. I guess we'll do a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Freeman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Whitaker is excused. Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Duff.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Luna.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye as well, so that passes 6 aye votes. Next item on our agenda is current event summary, including meetings and conferences attended. If you don't mind, I can't contain my enthusiasm. I just have to express our appreciation as a council and as a community to the voters of Mesa for approving question 1 in the election on Tuesday. This was a very important transportation bond in our city. The passage of that bond will allow us to access $62 million of tax dollars that the people of Mesa have paid that we otherwise couldn't have gotten to continue the great traditions we have in Mesa of having high quality streets and transit and shared use paths. So for the next several years, we'll have some great transportation projects that will address the growth in our community, but also improve the quality of the transportation and the quality of life that we have as a community. So speaking on behalf of the council, I just want to thank the voters for the confidence that you've shown in our city government and allowing us to get your permission to make these much needed improvements in the city. So I'm sorry, thank you for letting me get on my soapbox on that. Council, who else would like to say something under this agenda item? Let's go with Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few announcements that are going to be happening, if that's okay with you. I met with Nicole Leba. She's one of my constituents. She's been directing the We Run Mesa program for several years now. And she's going to kick it off again in January, so I'm looking forward to that. She's working with, of course, children from La Mesita. And so we're very excited that that's going to happen. So anticipate that happening sometime in January. Also, as chair of the MAG Economic Development Committee, we are continuing to work with our international partners in Sonora. And so we are planning to have a webinar soon with mayors and officials from Sonora, Mexico, as well as those mayors from south of the border. So that should be happening rather quickly. And then I do want to make an announcement that the Mesa Police Association is going to be holding a golf tournament. It's an offer assistance program, annual Blue Santa golf scramble tournament over at Dobson Ranch Golf Course. And typically what they do is they get those dollars, that fundraising activity to provide gifts for Christmas for kids in hospitals and schools and areas of poverty within the city of Mesa. So we're looking to work with them. And then their program will start. I know they had a program in many of our nonprofits. The Shotgun, I guess it starts at 7 a.m. And if you are interested in attending, you can call 480-440-8034. Also, I want to let you know that I will be participating in the Oakwood Creative Care, hosting an ultimate joy-filled, socially distant tailgate party this Saturday evening at 4 o'clock to 7 at the large parking lot at the Sheraton at Rio Salado. So I'm going to pass it over to Vice Mayor Freeman, who's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you, colleague, Councilmember Luna, Mayor. Oakwood is a great activity. We invite others to come out to, it's just north of the Sheraton there at Riverview, and participate that. I believe, Mayor, you're going to be there as well, I understand. You're like the keynote speaker. So.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I have some other comments, but I'll defer to Councilwoman Duff. She had her hand up before I did. So thank you.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Freeman, please go ahead.
All right, thank you. This past week, last couple of weeks, I've had a number of meetings with developers, our planning and zoning, transportation and engineering staff, and working out developments within District 1, which some exciting things are going to be happening. I'm working with the mayor on some of them. I've been on some neighborhood meetings. Again, I wanted to give a huge shout out. I've got some before and after pictures of, as in the fire service, we have a rapid response team. And that team is designed to respond to not only local, regional, and out-of-state major issues in our areas. And so we kind of have the same thing. I call it the rapid response transportation team for cleanup issues. We've had a lot of homeless encampments, and RJ and your staff, Eric, just kudos to you guys and those that are on the trucks with their equipment, working with our community action team officers. I ride with our CAT officer in D1 in Central quite often. He's probably getting tired of me, but regardless, we find encampments, and this team goes out and cleans it up impeccable, and it's just phenomenal. So, Mr. Brady, I appreciate having that team available, because I can show you some of the pictures there. But yeah, the needs in some of our districts in this cleanup team is phenomenal. So I appreciate their service, and I know it's not easy. It's not comfortable getting into other people's whatever, but end of the day, we have a clean, safe city, and that's what we need. So other than that, I think that covers all my notes, Mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Councilmember Duff.
Yes, well, adding on to that, Vice Mayor Freeman, I just wanted to bring up that yesterday I attended a Mesa Rotary meeting, and Fire Chief Mary Camelli had a presentation and informed us about many aspects of the fire and medical department. And I'm always impressed, and I just wanted to bring up a few things that she had mentioned that I want to share with everybody. That the fire and medical department actually does some wellness checks for our residents, and to prevent falls especially, and they will install grab bars for our residents so that they're more safe, because so many of their calls are falls, so they certainly want to prevent falls in home as much as possible. So that's a great thing that we're doing to be proactive in our community safety. Also, the fire department is taking many measures to protect their personnel from cancer-causing carcinogens. And I'm glad that that is coming forward, as cancer is prevalent among our first responders in the fire department because of the carcinogens from fires and other things, chemicals that they're exposed to. Also, their Aspire Academy for girls, it is inspiring. It's I think in the spring for a few days, which engages young women to experience some aspects of the fire department and consider it as a career, but it's also just a great experience in creating leadership and confidence. So it doesn't necessarily for young girls who want to be in the fire department, but it's for those who just really want to reach the capacity of who they already are. And I think that's about it for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Duff. Council, other comments under this agenda item? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of meetings look like?
Mayor, next council meeting would be a week from today in November. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the items on the agenda for this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Luna. We'll do a voice vote on that motion. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.